The Tyranid race is the greatest threat facing the Milky Way galaxy, and the other intelligent races don't even know the true scope of this never-ending and relentless predator. Welcome back to another 40 Facts about the 40K universe. I am your host, Gersh1, and today we're going to be talking about the origins, or the brief origins of the Tyranids, followed by a little bit of Tyranid invasion lore. If you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K lore videos every single day. If you guys have suggestions for any other topics or have any questions about the 40K universe, ask down in the comment section below, and I'll either answer it there or try to create a video for you guys. And of course, thank our patrons on Patreon. It is because of them that we can do this. Link in the description if you guys want to support us. It's just $1 a month. But with that said, let's get into 40 facts on the brief origin of the Tyranids. The origins of the Tyranids is a complete mystery. No one knows where they came from or how many of them there are. They just know that they came from outside of the galaxy. The Tyranids are just a massive superorganism capable of traveling from planet to planet, consuming biological material on each world, and then just moving on to the next one. They're animalistic in nature. There is no reasoning with the Great Devourer. The Tyranid Hive Fleet usually spews out lesser bioforms to accomplish the task of complete consumption of a world, and then these lesser organisms are controlled by a hive mind, but the hive mind itself has never communicated with any intelligent life form in the galaxy. They are considered the apex predator of space. The Tyranids are capable of quickly adapting to whatever force is preventing them from absorbing all possible biomass. The best theory of why they're in the Milky Way galaxy is that they crossed the great void of space because they simply ate all of the biomass to the nearest galaxy. This is just the next one in a long line of multiple galaxies that the Tyranids have consumed. The other theory claims that the Emperor and his Astronomicon is inadvertently attracting the Tyranids. Regardless of the purpose or origin of the Tyranids, it seems that they are unstoppable and they will simply consume everything in the galaxy. The Tyranids are further divided into lesser factions called hive fleets. The hive fleets usually tend to have special adaptations based on the obstacles that they have encountered in the Milky Way galaxy, and these adaptations are represented in the Codex as special rules. The Tyranids resemble the traditional alien bioform of most science fiction. They look like Alien or the Zerg. The reason you would want to play Tyranids is if you like giant swarms of creatures. Everything about the Tyranids is biological, so they can still shoot at you, but even the actual ammo and the gun is a biological weapon. You also have giant, massive, scythe-wielding monsters, which is always fun. The Tyranids have a minor faction called Genestealer cults. Genestealers are powerful Tyranid bioforms that are sent out as scouts for the Hive Fleet. Once they arrive at a planet, they start to prep it for its eventual consumption. They do this by inseminating the planet's native population with their gene seed, thus creating a cult of hybrids that try to gain control of the world so that when the Hive Fleet arrives, it's easier for them to consume the planet. The whole process of building a cult is very complex, and it depends on the native population that's on the world. Most gene stealers can go from having a couple of members to interbreeding with an entire social class and conquering the world in a very short amount of time. In appearance, the gene stealers range from slightly mutated humans to grotesque mockeries of what a human is supposed to be. The thing about gene stealers, similar to the worshippers of chaos, you're always going to have a hybrid that is part Tyranid, part human. You're rarely going to have some type of alien with Tyranid. Because of this faction is similar to the Astra Militarum, where it favors tanks and light infantry, but it could always be coupled with a Tyranid army. To give you guys more details of the all-consuming power of the Tyranid race within the lore, let's take a look at what the Imperium of Man has been able to gather based on the records collected from the various Tyranid invasions. This study has been one of the most difficult in the experience of the strategic collection. The primary problem of strategic examination of the aliens designated as the Tyranid race is endangered by their mobility and their methods of attack. Hive fleets of varying sizes have been encountered by the Imperium, and only one unifying feature of their methods has been established. Add to that the Tyranids maintain no permanent establishment on habitable worlds once they have been subsumed. It appears that the Hive Fleet stops in one place, only long enough to strip the world they have conquered before disappearing into deep space until they strike again. In strategic terms, the Hive Fleet's attack appeared to be primarily opportunistic. As worlds with desirable resources are discovered, the nearest Hive Fleet will move to consume them. Thus, relentlessly, the Tyranids are drawn towards the inhabited space, and most densely populated areas of the Imperium. As such, this document will confine itself to the known capabilities and actions of the Tyranids. Addenda shall be added as and when overall strategic objectives for the Tyranid hive fleets can be determined. The invasion of the system by Tyranids can be broken down into 5 discrete phases: discovery, approach, attack, subdual, and consumption. Their first phase is discovery. This discovery of potential targets is undertaken primarily by warp-capable scout drones, which disperse amongst the star systems close to a hive fleet. Over the course of decades, these living ships methodically investigate planets, and upon discovery of a good candidate, seed worlds with vanguard organisms such as lictors and gene-stealer infiltrators and various gaunt species. It is believed that the psychic signature of these creatures draws the hive fleet to them proportionally to their numbers. If the Tyranid nests are fruitful and multiply quickly, the hive fleet is soon drawn to the apparently rich feeding grounds. Less successful colonies appear to be given a lower priority. This method is also employed by the use of wrecked space hulks to carry pockets of gene stealers ahead of a hive fleet on the uncertain currents of the immaterium. If the creatures arrive at an inhabited world, they can infect its populace with a genetic corruption and achieve a vanguard of hybridized slaves, which will also attract the attention of a hive fleet. The success of this approach can be gauged by the fact that the gene stealers have been encountered aboard space hulks in every segmentum of the galaxy. Likewise, gene stealer infestations are commonplace enough that the High Lords have issued no less than 80 decrees pertaining to their cleansing by exterminatus in the last decade. If all else fails, it is believed that the hive ships perform some form of spectrographic analysis of the radiation from the nearest star to select a destination. We know this out of the fact that 72.3% of the encounters with hive ships, as opposed to smaller drones, have taken place in a system containing a star with high radiation. Once the first phase of discovery has been completed, and the hive fleet has chosen a destination, phase 2, the approach phase, begins. The arrival of the hive fleet is preceded by what the adepts term the shadow in the warp, a psychic disturbance which renders astropathic communication impossible, blots out the astronomicon, and renders warp travel extremely unpredictable. Both the relative distance and size of the hive fleet affect the intensity of the warp shadow, but in several reported instances, entire sectors have disappeared beneath it. As such, the shadow in the warp forms an uncertain compass of the Tyranids' movements. All too often, the target of their attack becomes apparent only after it has been enveloped and rendered unapproachable. The bioships which comprise the fleet may either exit simultaneously at the edge of the system, or in many reported instances, exit in deep space and drift towards its objective. This latter approach renders the hive fleet virtually invisible to long-range augury and astrotelepathic detection. There have been speculation that some hive fleets may actually drift through real space for the entire voyage between systems, but as this would entail a journey time of at least centuries in hibernation, it must be consigned to the realm of conjecture. Once the Tyranid hive fleet has reached the planet, phase 3 can begin, the attack phase. The Tyranid invasion is begun by the hive ships releasing spores into the target planet's atmosphere. The mix typically includes mycetic spores for landing vanguard and main forces, ground assault swarms, spore mines of a corrosive, poisonous, or explosive capability. Flying creatures are also dispatched in great numbers, primarily swarms of winged gaunt species, tended to by dropship-sized Harridan brood organisms. After the initial attack, phase 4, the subdual phase, begins. In the initial phase of invasion, the flying swarms make concentric attacks in an effort to herd the lifeforms into the path of ground swarms. Pre-existing vanguard organisms will move to join the advance, presumably sharing their information of local DNA, topography, and resistance with higher synaptic receptors of the Tyranid hive mind. Ground swarms are typically swift-moving in this period, comprising largely of gaunt species and Tyranid warriors, joined by vanguard lictors and gene stealers. The primary weapon of the Tyranids at this time is terror, their objective, the encirclement of all life forms on the planet prior to consumption. Resistance is attacked and overrun as quickly as possible, regardless of the casualties to the Tyranid themselves. Battles are frequently reinforced and expanded by the direct dropships of additional mycetic spores from the hive ships in orbit. The ground swarms are continuously reinforced with increasingly powerful contingents of Tyranid warriors, bioartillery, and specialized organisms like the Carnifex assault beasts and the hive tyrants. As resistant lines stabilize, they are infiltrated or smashed with coordinated wave attacks and mycetic spore drops. Centers of resistance are surrounded, besieged by the gathering of increasingly large and powerful swarms until they are overrun. Once all life forms have been rounded up, Phase 5 can begin, the consumption phase. Strictly speaking, the consumption of the planet under attack is continuous from the moment the hive ship achieves low orbit and releases organisms into the atmosphere. However, the point upon which the hive ships begin to replenish their reserves of biomass from the planet is a discrete phase, which forms the culmination of the Tyranid assault. Initially, emerging Tyranid feeder organisms spring up in the wake of the ground swarm's advance, mobile ones following hard at its heels, while stationary varieties spread and multiply at a ferocious rate, absorbing all life. Carrion from the battlefields is quickly consumed and used by several species to pupate and metamorphose into larger life forms. Biofactory organisms harvest and transmute the remaining feeders into nutrition gels, which are employed to feed the fighting swarms, and drone ship haulers, which replenish the hive ships in orbit. During this period, climate and humidity is subject to modification as increasing numbers of Tyranid organisms manipulate weather patterns to achieve maximum growth. Carbon dioxide and nitrogen are leached away, leading to an increasingly oxygen-rich environment. As resistance is overcome, more and more of the planet's surface is stripped bare by continuous harvesting until the Hive Fleet concludes its action by draining the planet's atmosphere and seas. At this point, many hive ships will split, adding to the fleet's numbers of drone vessels and immature bioships. With the attack complete, the Hive Fleet will then move into deep space again to seek a new target. And those were 40 facts on the Tyranids. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's a repost / compilation video. I don't have a standalone origin video for the Tyranids, so I wanted to throw this out there. But the origins of the Tyranids is actually pretty small. Like it's not that much to talk about. So I threw in the Tyranid invasion because it's a good refresher, and it actually comes from like the old, I think it's the 5th edition Tyranid Codex. So all of those records are on there, and it's kind of cool to hear what the Imperium initially thought the Tyranids were and how they interacted and everything like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed. More new videos to come. I actually had a Death Watch video prepared for today, but I decided to do a painting tutorial video alongside that lore video, kind of like a Blessed is the Mind Too Small for Doubt compilation thing, and I'm still painting that guy. It's taking a little bit longer than I expected, so I just wanted to throw this Tyranid invasion video for the reasons that I just said, and also just to appease the YouTube gods, because you got to keep them happy. But thanks so much for listening, guys, and I will talk to you guys in the comment section and tomorrow's video. This was Gershwin with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.